welcome or welcome back to my channel, Hasty Books. I'm Camilla, and if we need to be admitting things, discussing serious things, I have to admit that I'm Canadian. I don't know if you've been following for a while, you probably know this. I have posted about Canadian books and especially French Canadian books and Quebec books in the past because I am from Montreal. I am a French speaking on my mom's side, and that's kind of what I grew up speaking, even though to the bane of, my family, I decided to study English literature and move to the UK. But here we are. I've been really happy and keen to be following a lot of Canadian booktubers over the last few years, and it's been really fun and also refreshing to see some literature being highlighted from Canada, because I don't live there anymore. I feel like I'm not as in the know anymore, and that's truly concerning English speaking writers as well as French ones or Indigenous ones. So it's been great to listen to them and see them talk about prizes and kind of the more locally experts, which I don't think I can call myself, even though I'm happy to participate in the best books list and debate and discuss some of the book prizes. I haven't had a lot of time for that this year, but one thing I have decided to do this year is to join Jolene from Bookworm Adventure Girl in her challenge of reading around Canada. I kind of wanted to do it last year, but last year sort of kicked off a lot of different things. I started my PhD in 2023. We moved home, and it's just been a lot. This year's been a lot as well, but I've been sort of plodding along in the background, deciding like some books here and there. I think I've read 13 books from Canada so far this year, and I want to talk about what I've been doing for this prize and just highlight it as well and see what you guys are doing, or if you have any recommendations for me. I would love them because I'm struggling for a couple of the things. So let's dive right in terms of looking at the 12 prompts. So one for each month, what I've been reading. Apparently I'm 75% done. Is that correct? I'm missing 3 prompts, I think. Which I think means I'm up to date, because in October, November, December, 3 prompts left, even though they're not the 3 prompts that are missing. But yeah, I feel like I'm doing well. But as well as that, I want to be reading a book from all 13 provinces and territories. And that's not really part of the challenge, even though it sort of is. You're supposed to be going around, but there are 13 provinces / territories, and there are 12 months, so technically you should be reading more. So yeah, anyway, let's dive right in and start with the challenges, prompts that Jolene has set for us. So in January, I think I started to the challenge a bit late because my January was a bit busy. I started in February, and actually I only read the January prompt book, I want to say in August. So the January prompt was to read a debut book, and there was lots of books that were kind of suggested that you could read. I accidentally read one because I saw a book on NetGalley that sounded so fun, and I requested it. And turns out it was a debut novel by a Canadian author. So I was like, wonderful. So the debut that I read was called Maya's Laws of Love by Alina Khawaja, and it was really good. I really enjoyed it. The book sort of starts in Canada, then goes on to Switzerland before going to Pakistan, and the author is, I think, Canadian Pakistani. So yeah, I really enjoyed it. I haven't reviewed it on the channel yet, I believe, but it will be for fans of like Uzma, Jalaluddin and such, because yeah, just very kind of light and breezy and just really fun. I really enjoyed it. In February, the prompt was to read a book by a Black Canadian author, and there was lots that I was planning on reading. Like the main one I wanted to read was The Sleeping Carporter by Suzette Mayer, but I've not been able to get my hands on this book at all, which is really unfortunate. I would have to buy it, which I'm not sort of keen to do yet. So yeah, so that's why I could have left it. But I have picked up Dominoes at the Crossroads, by Kai Kello, and this was a series of short stories, and I really enjoyed some of them. Some of the other ones I was like, okay. I read it in September, so a bit late to the February prompt, but did it. which is better than the March prompt, which was to read because it's the month of the mammoth, so you're supposed to read books that are more than 500 pages. I have not done that one. I don't know if I will be doing that one. The one I really wanted to read was Fame by Anne-Marie MacDonald, but again I would have to buy it. I feel like maybe it would be a good one on audio, but I haven't been able to find that yet, so we'll see how that goes. I think they mentioned Eleanor Catton a lot, but I'm unwilling to see her as Canadian because she doesn't see herself as Canadian, so she's not on my list of Canadian, because I was planning this year on reading The Luminaries, but first I don't have time to read that at the end of the year because I've started Tomb of Sand, and that will be my kind of big book to finish the year. So maybe next year I'll be reading The Luminaries, but also for me she's a Kiwi author. But anyway, let's move on to the April prompt, which was to read a book by an author that was born outside of Canada. And actually I only read one. I think I might have only read one, but in Quebec, for me, a lot of the authors that I quite enjoy were born outside of Canada, lots of immigrants and stuff, so that's something that I sort of do a lot when I read Canadian literature. But this year, purposefully read We Were Dreamers by Simu, which is his memoir. He was born in China and then moving to Canada and like growing up and figuring out what he wanted to do and going to acting up till he actually starts filming Shang-Chi, which I really enjoyed. And yeah, I really enjoyed that actually. And that was really funny because I read it on audio, and while I was actually listening to it on audio, I went on a trip with some girlfriends on a road trip with our car, and my phone kept automatically connecting to the Bluetooth of the car. So every time I turned the car on, Simu would just start speaking. I'd be like, "Stop it, Simu!" Because it was just like even when I wasn't in the app, when I hadn't been listening to it, it would just automatically like sync up with the audiobook. But anyway, I had a good time reading that. And there's lots of books by Canadians kind of that grew up, that were born in another country that I'm keen to read. So obviously Silvia Moreno Garcia is also one that I want to read, and I was planning on reading, and I have one of her books on my bedside table, but I haven't picked it up yet. It was a book I was planning on reading before I picked up Simu's memoir. The prompt for May was to read a Canadian thriller, mystery, or horror book. I haven't done that yet either, so that's one of my 3 missing prompts along with the mammoth. So I was planning, like I've just said about Silvia Moreno Garcia, I was planning on reading her book, but well, I haven't, and I don't know if I will have time to read it before the end of the year. So I decided instead, and I've been meaning to read it for a while. It's a French-Canadian, I guess thriller, like crime novel that my parents told me about. They were so happy when they found this series by Roxane Bouchard, and I've been meaning to read it ever since. Apparently it's actually also very much based in the region that my mom's from. The first book is called Nous étions le sel de la mer, or We Were the Salt of the Sea, and I found audio for it, so I hopefully will be listening to it very soon, definitely before the end of the year, because I'm very keen actually. I'm very excited for that. And my mom always is happy that I read French books. So yeah, we'll be getting onto that. The June prompt was to read a book by an LGBTQI plus or Indigenous author. I actually have been doing that regardless. So one of my goals for this year's reading around Canada was actually to read from marginalized voices, or like marginalized genders and identities throughout the year. So that's what I've been trying to do as well with all the prompts. And so I definitely fulfilled the Indigenous. I think I read at least 3, I want to say, by Indigenous authors. And also I read Pageboy by Elliott Page. Yeah, I feel like I've been definitely managing this one. And this kind of goes back to the July promise, was to read a book about or by a Canadian celebrity. So obviously Pageboy by Elliott Page, and then We Were Dreamers by Simu. So read both of those, enjoyed both enough. So yeah, done, check. the prompt for August was to read a Canadian woman translation. This is a bit harder for me to do because I read books in French and books in English. However, in January, I received my Christmas gift from my parents and included a book, Un thé dans la toundra, A Tea in the Tundra, by Indigenous Innu writer Josephine Bacon. And this book is actually in French and in Innu-Aimun. They're both on the page, and even though I cannot read Innu-Aimun, it's basically her own translation into French, and so I counted that one as reading in translation, and it was really cool actually to have both of them, the text right there. Like I really love that, even though obviously I do not speak Innu-Aimun, and I will not even try to say the title of A Tea in the Tundra, because I know that I can't say it correctly and I don't want to butcher it. But yes, so that was a really good one. I really enjoyed that book of poetry as well, so I really recommend it. In September, the prompt was to read a book shorter than 200 pages, so obviously shorter September for everyone in the booktube sphere, and I actually read 3 of those throughout the year. Obviously, the book I've just mentioned of poetry by Josephine Bacon is less than 200. Obviously, Dawn at the Crossroads by Kai Kalau was also short. And also I read, I think it's technically shaped as a story for children or sort of middle grade. It's called Fatty Legs. I will put all of the details below. But that was a really good one, and I was very short as well, very concise. So yeah, definitely done that one as well. Now we're in October. The prompt for October is to read a Canadian Literary Award winner. I took it as a prize of Canadian Literary Prize, and then someone that's won that book. So I was still planning on reading The Sleeping Car Porter by Suzette Mayer, as I mentioned, but again, not being able to get my hands on it. But then I was able to find a copy of Study for Obedience by Sarah Bernstein in audio, and that's one of the books that I read recently while sanding all day. I put my earphones in and listened to it. It's really short, and I just listened to the whole thing. And yeah, I read that. Don't know that I really enjoyed it that much, but it passed the time and I accomplished this prompt. Yay! In November, the prompt it's obviously for Nonfiction November, is to read some Canadian nonfiction. And for that, actually, I did that early in this year. I read Truth Telling, 7 Conversations about Indigenous Life in Canada by Michelle Good, who is, I guess, maybe more famous for having written 5 Little Indians, which I haven't read actually. But I read that one, really enjoyed it. I will try to read more in November. We'll see when I do my TBR for that month. But yeah, that's been really good. And finally in December, I feel like it's been so long in this video, apologies. In December, the prompt is to read a Canadian book recommendation. I feel like a lot of the books I've mentioned have been recommendation, like The Thriller by Roxane Bouchard that my parents have recommended to me a lot. I feel like Study for Obedience was recommended a lot as well, just generally, like not to me personally. Yeah, okay, maybe not a lot of the other ones. But I've come here that this is my 3rd and final prompt I haven't accomplished yet. So I'm here to ask for your recommendation. Again, taking into consideration that I'm reading only marginalized voices for this challenge. Or just that's what I've been trying to do this whole year generally, but for this challenge very specifically as well. So leave them in the comments below. I would really enjoy that. Thank you. But also before we go, I did want to quickly mention that I've been trying to read, like I said, throughout the territories and the provinces. So I read from Quebec. That's definitely check, done. That's not hard. Neither is Ontario. And actually when you try to read from immigrant voices and stuff like that, a lot of them are from Ontario. And that's not surprising that Quebec and Ontario are the biggest. That's where most of the population of Canada lives, obviously. But I've been wanting to read across. So I have read from the Northwest Territories and from Yukon, but I'm missing Nunavut. And I found that that was a really difficult one to try to find something that wasn't written by a white man. The book that I'm currently hoping to read is called Sakiyuk. I told you I didn't speak, the Indigenous languages. But this is by Nancy Wachowicz. And she wrote that book in collaboration with the 3 Indigenous women that she's writing their life in that book. But it was written by her, so I feel like it's not quite own voices, and I'm not super keen. there's Split Tooth that I really want to read, but I haven't been able to find it. Unfortunate. I just can't manage to get it. So that would be my goal. These are 2 books that I might try to get to. So that covers the territories. I've read from Saskatchewan, Nova Scotia, and Manitoba, and then obviously Quebec and Ontario, as I mentioned already. So what am I missing? I'm missing Alberta, but I've found on one of the apps I have Badland by Corina Chong, and also I've just seen that is, I believe, nominated for the Giller Prize. So I was like, oh, okay, cool. Because I had already put it on my TBR to read, but here it is. For BC, I'm planning on reading, and I'm, again, photo and text below, Spillex by Nicola I. Campbell. So that's kind of one I'm hoping, again, because I'm trying to get more of the Indigenous voices as well, if I can. But anyway, except for that, I'm missing, okay, now we're in that was the West, now we're in East. In the East, I'm missing Newfoundland. Really struggle to find anything. At the moment, I found Topography of Love by Bernice Morgan. That's the only one. And by say I find, like, obviously I found some titles that sound interesting, but haven't been able to get my hands on them. So these titles I'm mentioning are titles that I have access to. So that's one of them. Then for New Brunswick, I really want to read a Charlene Carr, but haven't been able to get my hands on any book. And apart from her, I haven't been able to really find other authors. I'd really like to maybe read something from like a Shiak speaker. Like, if you have recommendations, just let me know. And maybe, because I'm going home in December, maybe I can look for some books when I'm back home. So we'll see. And finally, I think the last one that has only questions mark next to it is PEI. I swear to God, when you Google books by PEI authors, all that comes up is Lucy Maud Montgomery, which, fabulous, love it. But also, I want something else. I want something more modern. I want something more, I don't know, from more marginalized voice. I have a friend that lives in PEI. I need to message her, actually, about that. She might know someone. But also, you know, putting up to you out there, like, if you have a really good recommendation from an author from PEI, I would love to hear it. I'm like so keen about all this. It's been so fun and so eye-opening about the whole kind of history, but also cultures of Canada as a whole. And it's been really good. And I've enjoyed this. Would I repeat it again? Maybe not at this pace and at this like level, because I feel like I've gone a bit much. I've read 13 books so far, I think. And I want to read at least, hopefully, another 4, 5, 6. I feel like a lot. Maybe when I'm home, that's all I'm going to be reading, but we'll see how that goes. So yeah, anyway, let's wrap this up. It's been probably long enough. This is the Reading Again Canada Challenge by the lovely Jolene. So what are you doing? Are you participating? What's been your favorite read so far? If you have recommendation, like I mentioned, especially for the prompts and the provinces that I'm missing, I would love it. Thank you so much. And as always, thank you so much for watching, and Haysiak. Bye.